Blue Collar Garbage. Look us up on YouTube, Rumble, all one word. Like, share, and subscribe, and we appreciate it. We're going to look at tariff threats, push Canadians to reconsider cross-country pipelines.
Why wouldn't we be talking about providing energy security to our friends in Ontario and Quebec and Atlantic Canada by having our own pipeline built?
Renewed calls for pipelines are echoing across Canada because of Trump.
I asked the federal government to immediately approve the Energy East project.
Canadian politicians want to protect the country's
Trudeau's
economic interests ahead of Trump's proposed
Governor
tariffs,
Trudeau.
including a 10%
The governor.
tax on energy resources. That would seriously impact Canada's biggest export moneymaker, crude oil. The United States is Canada's biggest customer for oil by far, and most of it comes from Alberta. The landlocked province uses a vast network of pipelines to get its energy resources
We don't even
to
need them,
refineries
man.
and ports across Canada and the U.S. Most of them go through or directly to the States, a country that gets more than half its oil from Canada. Canada is so reliant on the U.S., even if we got a 10% tariff, we'd still have no choice but to continue to sell to them, unless there were other options.
Now we have an opportunity to have a different conversation and, frankly, to strengthen our sovereignty.
She's talking pipelines. There are two previously canned plans that keep coming up again now, Energy East and Northern Gateway. The idea is to get Alberta oil directly to the east and west coasts, then sell it at home and export it around the world. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, for example, does just that. Currently sending about 600,000 barrels of oil a day directly from Edmonton to West Coast ports. Some still goes to the U.S., but some is sold to Asian markets.
You know, the world is our oyster.
Former Alberta Premier Rachel Notley is on the Prime Minister's Canada-U.S. Relations Council.
Oh, they are so tired of hearing about it from me.
What is the reaction, though, honestly?
Well, there's a lot of head nods. People understand that, this is a frustrating situation that we're in. I think, some folks are wondering, is this really doable?
Is it? Northern Gateway, Energy East, and other pipeline projects were called down for a lot of reasons. Some include a lack of federal government support, pushback from Quebec and Ontario, and environmental concerns. So it's been a challenge to get everybody on board. Would that change now?
In the aftermath of what has happened, we do need to reflect a little bit. Right now, much of Ontario and Quebec get their oil from a pipeline that runs from Canada into the United States and back up to Canada.
What Mr. Trump is doing may change the situation in the future. So if there's a social acceptability, we will be open to these kind of projects.
Do you think people will be changing their minds now that we might be facing a trade war?
I think so, yes. If I look at my social media feeds and the united front against the tariffs, that gives me some hope that we can and will work together more closely on solving problems like this.
Energy advisor Karina Bryson with
So they think they're going to run them another pipeline and do us out of and take us out of it.
Yeah. If you start having lines at gas stations and
These people don't even have no guns,
like that,
man.
They might decide that
no guns, no army, no nothing.
We just go
take over there and take your gas, take your oil, take everything. Yeah.
Some of the most visible
you hear that, Governor Trudeau?
Pipelines in Canada come from First Nations communities. But when Trump's recent tariff threats surfaced, at least one leader seemed to waver.
We are staring into the abyss of uncertainty, the climate crisis, and the American
threat.
She
beating on a tom-tom?
I would suggest that if we don't
I'm Indian outlaw, half turkey and chuckmaw.
Kind of infrastructure, Trump will.
What did you mean when you said, if we don't build this type of infrastructure, Trump will?
Everybody steps in it once in a while. And I think I kind of stepped in it there. But we've since clarified our position.
Would you support a new pipeline through British Columbia?
No, absolutely not. The reason
said absolutely not.
Abundantly clear in regard to the destructive impacts of the intensifying climate crisis. Our history is written on the land itself.
There you go with this climate bullshit.
So we're very dependent on what happens to the land.
Potentially, the biggest hurdle is who would pay for these pipelines. The companies that were involved in those canceled pipelines tell CBC they have no interest in restarting them. Any new company would have to start the regulatory process from scratch. Now, some suggest if no private companies step in, the federal government could, like it did with the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. But again, would it?
Building on the Team Canada approach, if as a nation we decide we want to do this, we can do this. But it's going to take an awful lot of people rowing in the same direction at the same time for a sustained period. It's a long time since we've done that as Canada.
Yeah, that's. They gonna try to weasel their way out of that shit.
That's what it sounds
They
like.
think they gonna try to weasel out them tariffs.
Yeah.
What you gonna do is pay them tariffs.
Sounds like they're gonna try
and
that.
shut your mouth
and cut us out of the pipeline.
That's what they gonna try to do. Well, man, they need to start our pipeline anyway. They need to go and get that shit going.
It needs to go
again.
on down.
Yeah.
But it's gotta go through Canada. Comes from Alaska.
I don't think it does. You think it goes through Canada?
Mm-hmm.
That's where it goes now. If it comes from Canada to us, then back to Canada.
Alaska.
But if we have our own shit, we don't need a pipeline to go nowhere.
But it comes from Alaska.
Yeah, but
we got stuff in Texas.
Yeah. Hell, we got more oil than anybody's got, supposedly. So I mean,
we got oil in the Gulf of America.
Yeah, the Gulf of America.
Gulf of America.
That sounds good, don't it? Gulf of America.
America.
It's Trump's America now, bitches.
Hell yeah. Like Trump's wants
America.
to abolish the IRS. Look at that one. Trump wants to abolish the IRS.
I don't know, man. It's like they just pay the 10% tariffs, man.
Yeah.
And be done with it.
That's some money, though.
Yeah, but still,
That's
man.
some
I
money.
mean, hey, that's part of it. Listen, we've been protecting them for years and years and years, and they ain't paid shit.
Nope.
Paid nothing. Just like Europe and them, same shit. I don't know what they're going to do if they need protection anymore, because I bet Trump's going to be like, no.
Raw dogging.
They're
raw dogging.
You as Fox in your...
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
I don't know, man.
He's going to teach us about the IRS.
What are we doing? Just going straight into another one?
Take a listen.
As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens.
Exactly.
At first, I kind of thought this was a joke. But Congress is taking it seriously. The Fair Tax Act of 2025 was a bill proposed which would effectively abolish the IRS.
That's
and
what I
if
was
you
talking
still
about.
don't believe me, let me read you one sentence from the bill's press release. The fair tax would also eliminate the need for the Internal Revenue Service. Now, you're probably wondering, if the government decides to cancel your income tax, how do they get money? Which might explain why Trump has also been working to create the ERS, the External Revenue Service, as a new entity to collect tariffs. That's why in this video, I want to talk about taxes, not from a political perspective, but from a financial perspective, because as a licensed attorney who's not your attorney, who keeps a copy of the Federal Income Tax Code in his office, which is, by the way, a 2,000-page book with 8 or 10-point font, I can tell you that taxes are very confusing. And they might get even more confusing. And so I want to break this down by talking about 3 things. Number 1, I want you to really understand how our tax system works today, that we can understand how tariffs flow into it. Number 2, I want to talk about tariffs as a potential replacement for the income tax. What does that look like? Is it possible? And then number 3, I want to talk about, well, what would the consequence of that be? Would it make the inflation problem worse or not? Which is why I want you to really stick with me till the end, because I think it'll really help you understand the entire big picture. This is a very rough drawing of how our tax system works. This is you. For my male followers, I drew a mustache, which in my native language Punjabi is a much.
Damn,
For my
that's a
female
Lash
followers, I
LaRue
drew a braid,
mustache
which in my
right there.
native language Punjabi is called a gut. You pay the government taxes. I'll explain how and why you pay the government taxes in just a second, but you pay the government taxes, and then when the government collects this tax revenue, they can go out and spend this tax money. Now, you might think that if the government collects $100 in taxes, that they can only spend $80 out of the 100, or maybe max $100 because that's all they have. But that's not true, because if the government wants to spend money that they don't have, which is what they've been doing, then what they do is they go out and borrow that money, which is why we're seeing a record high amount of national debt today, which means you pay taxes to the government goes out and spends all of your taxes and then some with the help of debt. Now you might be wondering, well, what are you paying taxes on exactly? Here's a rough list of 10 different buckets of taxes that you might be paying. Number one is your income taxes. You go to work to make money. Well, some of that money is going to go in the form of income taxes because you just got paid. The government wants their fair share. Number two is payroll taxes. Payroll taxes are on top of your income taxes, which is when you get a salary, you have to pay FICA taxes. This is Social Security and Medicare taxes, which is paid by you and your employer. If you're self-employed, you have to pay both ends of it, so you have to pay double the payroll taxes, but this is paid on top of your income taxes. Number three is capital gains taxes. If you go out and buy a stock and you sell it for profit, you have to pay taxes on that. That's called capital gains taxes. Number four are corporate taxes. If you run a C corporation, you run a big corporation and you make profits, the corporation has to pay taxes in addition to the people that are actually getting the money. Number five are property taxes. You buy a house, you got to pay taxes every year, which is called your property tax. Number six is called your estate tax, also known as your death tax, which is when you die. If you pass money down to your kids, you have to pay taxes on that. Now, not everybody's going to have to pay taxes. This is really just reserved for the wealthy. As of 2025, the limit is you have to pass down more than $13.99 million before you have to worry about this estate tax. But if you're passing down huge sums of wealth, you also have to worry about this estate or death tax. Number seven are sales taxes. You go to the store and buy things, you got to pay sales taxes. Number eight are sin taxes. These are taxes put on things like cigarettes. If the government doesn't like it, like lottery, well then they'll put a tax on it as a way for the government to make some more money as well. Number nine are tariffs, which we already know, and I'm going to go deeper into tariffs. And then number 10 are other. I just kind of lumped everything else here because there are other types of taxes as well. For example, toll taxes. For example, certain times you might see hotel taxes. So there are a lot of different types of taxes out there. And what President Trump is trying to propose, and what it seems like he's proposing, is saying, hey, let's take this category of tax right here, this income tax, which everybody who has a job has to worry about. Let's get rid of that, and let's replace that by increasing this tax right here, tariffs from goods from other countries. So now that we all have a foundation of how our tax system works, where the government is going to collect taxes from you, and then they're going to spend all that money, and then some with the help of debt, let's now talk about, could we actually feasibly use tariffs as a replacement for the income tax? Now, I do want to let you know that if you're an investor and you like to stay up to date on what's happening in things like the economy and things like the stock market and things like the housing market, the crypto market, and the global economy, my team at Briefs Media publishes an amazing free newsletter every day called Market Briefs, where we break down what's happening in the economy, in the financial markets, into a quick and witty and fun to read newsletter. You can read it in less than 5 minutes every morning, and it's completely free. We have hundreds of thousands of investors that are reading Market Briefs every morning. So if you'd like to join for free, I have the link for you to join down in the description below. In 2024, the IRS collected about $5.1 trillion in income taxes. And then out of the $5.1 trillion that they collected, the IRS then had to pay back a little bit over $500 billion in the form of tax refunds and credits. So let's just say, we'll call it that the government collected around $4.5 trillion in the form of income taxes. Now, I know I'm just a random guy on YouTube, but if I did some basic math, if you want to get rid of the income tax, I think that you'd have to collect an additional $4.5 trillion in the form of tariffs in order to negate that. So I did a little bit of digging, and according to the United States Customs and Border Protection website, here's what I found. There were about $3.35 trillion of goods imported into the United States in 2022, of which we generated around $111 billion in tariffs. Now, I know that was based off of 2022 numbers, but that's the best data that we have from the government agencies themselves. But if we take a look at the 2022 numbers, that means, in theory, the government would have to impose something like a 130% tariff on all imported goods into the United States in order to generate $4.5 trillion based off of the $3 trillion or so that was brought in or imported into the United States in 2022, which doesn't seem very feasible. Not to mention the fact that the goal of tariffs is to bring some manufacturing back to the United States, which might have you thinking, if we slap on big tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Steve.
Yeah. Caught him. Caught him.
Wake your ass up! Party time!
Party time!
Woo, woo, woo.
Crashed out on us.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You got to learn about taxes.
Shit, they killing me on them.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. I done shut my eyes a couple times and I was nodding.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm figuring this shit out.
Yeah, I was looking at it too, though. I was looking at it too.
Yeah. No, I didn't nod out on that one.
I don't think we'll figure it out still, though.
No.
Because they're going to come up with all kind of other crazy shit on it. 130% on
You
tariffs.
want to watch something different? You want to do something different? Let's see here.
That's crazy, man. So much money, man.
Bunch of money.
God, it's so much money.
It's out there. It is out there, man. It's out there.
Why are we paying so much, though? That's ridiculous.
To line their pockets.
I know, but man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's modern day enslavement.
It is,
Yeah,
man.
it's
been going on forever and ever.
Because they spend all of our tax dollars, they tax us out the ass, and then they spend more than what they're borrowing.
What they're supposed,
and or what they're getting, so they're borrowing it, so that inflates the dollar. So our taxes are still there and going up.
Yep.
And then the dollar's worth less and less every day. Yep. So we have to stay in line.
Yeah.
Is really what's happening.
Man. It's crazy.
Yeah, have to. Now it's in a hole, and we're giving money to other countries. If they just quit giving money to other countries,
that's what I'm saying. I think that's one of the biggest problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to agree.
You know, but
I'd get us all jammed pretty quick right there.
Yep.
Yeah. So you want to keep going on with this or what?
Don't matter, might as well.
Might as well, huh? All right, let's do it.
Hell, Steve will be asleep here in about 2 more minutes.
And some more manufacturing comes back into the United States. We might have even less imported goods because less goods are being made overseas. So if less goods are being made overseas, more goods are being made here, less goods are being imported, that means less tariffs are being collected. So based off of the 2022 numbers, to just rely on tariffs to offset the income tax seems very difficult unless, of course, the government cuts down their spending as well.
Yep.
Part
Well,
of the reason why the
that ought
government
to happen
needs
off
such
gate.
high income taxes is
that
because
needs to
they
stop
spend a
off
lot
gate.
of money.
They just saved $85 billion.
But yeah, if you're not sending it to all the countries, then it will.
So maybe the government could.
It will definitely cut out big time.
Yeah, you just got to quit spending money overseas.
So,
keep it
well, I mean,
here.
he's done cut all that shit off.
Yeah.
He's done cut all the funding, everything. So, I mean, that's got to make a big difference already.
It's got to.
Their expenses drastically, and then they could generate less dollars from tariffs, eliminate the income tax, and then be okay because, well, we need less dollars. But you can start to see how that becomes a little bit difficult. But let's go a little bit deeper. Based off of the data that we have today, it seems very unlikely that tariffs would serve as a complete replacement for the income tax. Maybe you could use tariffs as a way to potentially reduce income taxes, but completely replacing income taxes, just based off of the numbers that we have today, doesn't seem very likely. But let's continue down this rabbit hole.
Yes.
If tariffs were to get passed, and we were to potentially reduce income taxes as a byproduct of these tariffs, what would be the consequence of that? Could we be looking at potentially higher inflation? Well, let's dig a little bit deeper. It's very easy to understand how tariffs could make the prices of things more expensive. Give you a quick example. Let's assume that I sell shoes, and I sell this very ugly shoe that I drew
you sell
for
cars.
$100 at retail price. Now, if I manufacture the shoe in China, I'm not paying $100 for the shoe. Let's just say I'm paying $50 to get the shoe manufactured in China, theoretical example. Now, if there is a brand new 20% tariff that's slapped onto goods from China, that means now my cost on this is not going to be $50, my cost is going to be $60. Now, I have a few options. I could eat up this profit margin and take that hit if I wanted to, or I could pass down this $20 cost, and now instead of selling it for $100, I could sell it to consumers for $120. This is one way that the prices of things can go up, and it's pretty obvious. So yes, could this raise the price to $120 or $110 or $105 to make up for this higher cost? Sure. But you also have some economists that say that tariffs will not make the prices of things more expensive. For example, the Economics Policy Institute in 2022 published a study saying that tariffs on steel did not cause the prices of steel to go up. Now, if you don't know the history of this, back in Trump's first term in 2018, he passed a 25% tariff on steel entering the United States. And the question ultimately is then what happened to the price of steel after those tariffs were imposed? Take a look. The steel tariffs were passed in March of 2018, which is where this line is right here. And what you can see is after the tariffs were passed, steel prices actually went up a little bit until September 2018. But then after that, steel prices actually fell. And they actually became cheaper than where they were before the tariffs until the pandemic hit.
Wake up! I'm about to nod out too.
What the hell?
I'm fucking tired, man.
Y'all don't think this is interesting?
Not really.
All right. Well,
I mean, it's interesting. It's just I'm burnt out, man.
Oh.
Goddamn, we done on how many something. I ain't shit, sure. I was in it there for a minute, and then I was just like, oh, fuck this shit. And then I nodded just a little bit and opened my eyes. I didn't get as bad as Steve, though. Steve was out.
Oh,
Steve was out for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Boom.
I was out.
Yeah, you got a couple minutes there.
Oh, yeah.
You got a couple minutes. Oh, Lord.
Man, Steve was going out again on round 2. Yeah. I was watching. His eyes closed for a little bit.
Hey, people, we so tired trying to make his content. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Blue Collar Garbage, like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Oh, man.